either I think it's like either a payout to shareholders, a dividend, or I think even more important is for a lot of companies to start looking at, rather than paying shareholders all this money, is maybe we need to start paying our employees a lot more money so we can attract better employees and we can attract better talent to come to our companies.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tolusnotes. On this podcast, we'll explore how young adults invest their time and their money. I also have a written newsletter filled with valuable information that you can subscribe to at tolusnotes.com. My guest today is investor and YouTuber Kelechi Iwuaba, a fellow Nigerian with a similar background to mine. We discuss everything from how investors can balance social and environmental impact with portfolio returns, his goal for dividend payments, and how he plans to donate 100% of his dividends to charity. I'm especially a big fan of the end where he discussed getting out of debt with the help of Dave Ramsey, but realizing that he needed to drop Ramsey's teaching if he was to invest successfully. This episode was a lot of fun to record, and I hope you learned a few things from it. All the material discussed on this podcast is for educational purposes only. It should not be taken as personalized investment, tax, or legal advice. It is not an indication to buy or sell certain securities. My guests and I do not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of this information. As always, do your own research. Awesome. Welcome, man. Welcome. Thanks for doing this call.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Well,
Thanks for having me.
no, of course, of course. What made you decide to show up today?
I was like, I mean, somebody wants to interview me about personal finance is always a thing I would talk about. Plus, he's a Nigerian guy who he has a Nigerian name. I'm like, he's Nigerian, so I definitely have to show up for this one.
Definitely, man. I appreciate it. Wait, were you born here? Were you born back in
I was born in Nigeria. I moved here 2006.
2006? Oh man, we're pretty close in the timeline. I moved here around middle school also. I
Oh,
was
okay.
born in Enugu State, and
Oh,
then my
okay.
family lived in Ibadan for a while.
Oh, cool, cool. I was
Yeah,
born
man.
in Shagamu, and then I
Oh,
moved here.
oh yeah, welcome. So where are you at right now in the States?
I'm in Georgia.
In Georgia. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm out
Yeah.
here in Cali. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, Cali
welcome,
boy over
welcome.
here.
Welcome, man.
Cool.
Awesome. So this format is going to be a little more interesting. So I
Okay.
did the first episode with Jerome. I don't know if you saw, he was on Millennial Money
Oh,
recently.
cool.
Um, but this format is going to be completely different because
All right.
I didn't send you any practice material, like anything to practice on, and
Okay.
you didn't send me anything either. So this is
Yeah.
going to be more of a conversation.
Cool.
So I'm gonna be asking you questions. I want you to also hit me back, if you have any questions, and just let's
Cool.
just talk about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think the first thing to be that I think would be interesting is who are you off screen, right? Because you do a lot of stuff online, right? So
Yeah.
offline, who are you?
That's a good question. I guess offline, I graduated from college. I'm an engineer by trade offline. Um, I like soccer. I play a lot of soccer. Well, except for right now because COVID is kind of messing everything up for me.
Yeah.
I ref soccer games when I can, and I do a lot of stuff with my church as well. So offline, when I'm not doing all this talking about all finances and all that kind of stuff online, offline I'm just a dude, a regular guy who likes to play soccer, who loves going to church, and who loves the Lord, and who's an engineer. That's basically what I am offline.
Also, what type of engineering?
I'm a mechanical engineer.
Mechanical. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a computer science
Oh, dope.
major also.
Makes
So.
sense that you're in Cali. Makes very good sense there. Makes
So
perfect
you're
sense.
also I kind of I stalked a lot of your content just to just study everything. So there might be some weird questions that you're just are you asking me that? So just know that.
That's fine.
You're also a big you're in the gym a lot, I noticed. And there was this video you had that actually caught my attention where you said whenever people are trying to work out, they ignore the most important muscles, which are your legs and your back.
Yup.
And that's something that I was yeah, because for the longest time I ignored my back, just when I'm working out. So
Yup.
what this is still a finance podcast, so I really want to say, like, what has the gym kind of taught you about investing?
It's taught me, I guess, three things. I'll say it's taught me three different things. The first thing that it's taught me is consistency is like the best thing. Like when you start anything financially or when you're trying to be focused on your finances, is literally doing it over and over and over. Like just having a focus on it and doing it repetitively is like the
Mhm.
biggest thing that you can get the most out of. The second thing is to have patience because it's going to take a while to start seeing a lot of the results that you want to see.
Yeah.
For example, if you're paying off debt, when you first start paying off that debt, it's like, man, I'm not making any progress. It feels like you're not making any progress, but as you keep doing it and doing it, then you start seeing that progress. And then a third thing that is like, enjoy when you hit some of your goals. Is like to enjoy the hitting of some goals and some targets that you have for yourself. So those are three things that I've really that working out has taught me. Because in the gym, like you said, when you first start out working out, it's like, man, I want to lose weight. And then you start doing it. But like the first month, like for me, the first month I started working out, I was like, man, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of results with this. But like as time progressed, then you start seeing, the other day I was talking to my brother and I was like, yo, my legs are finally coming in. Like it's finally showing that I've been working out in my legs. And he was laughing at me, but he works out a lot too. And so we're
Awesome.
just like, but it takes time. And that's with me consistently working out for almost more than 2 years now.
Yeah.
And before it was on and off, on and off, on and off.
Awesome.
And so
Awesome.
just having all of that stuff put together is just some of the lessons that I've learned from working out all the
That's
time.
great. So that legs feeling where you just felt like your legs were finally coming on.
Yep.
What's that feeling for you in finance?
The day that I get more than like when I start getting like hundreds of dollars in dividend payments,
Okay.
then I'm gonna be like, okay, yeah, this thing is working. Um,
Okay.
that's when I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, this thing is definitely starting to like I'm starting to see the snowball effect taking place. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I still see it when it's like, oh, I had a good day in the market today. Like my portfolio grew by $200. It's like, oh, that's good. But for me, it's like more than anything else, the dividend payments and actually the income coming back in from the companies paying me is the version of like, oh, my leg, like I'm finally seeing the results of like those days of
Gotcha.
researching and all that stuff. So
Gotcha. So would you say you're a dividends kind of like investor, like dividends focused?
I would say I'm balanced of the two in the sense
Okay.
of like I have both dividend paying companies and growth companies as well.
Okay.
I'll say I'm more of a value investor is the way I'll put it, in the sense of like I'm always looking for like good companies um, that that will grow into something in the future. So, for example, one of the companies that I've been looking into is Lemonade, which is an insurance company. I haven't invested a whole lot into them yet, but I think they're going to revolutionize the way that we do insurance and the way that it
Okay.
looks at insurance. Now, that company, I don't expect them to pay a dividend for years to come. However, I'm also invested in a company like AT&T, which
Okay.
is very much a legacy company, a big
Yeah.
blue chip company that has been paying dividends for years and years and years. And then also I have companies like Microsoft and Apple, which are like in the in between range of like they pay a
Okay.
dividend, but they don't pay that much of a dividend. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what I would
Awesome.
say.
Cool, cool, cool. And the reason I asked that is because so on my newsletter, so
Yeah,
just rewinding a little bit,
yeah,
I run this newsletter called Tolusnotes.
yeah. I saw that.
And
I read a couple
oh,
of them.
oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice. One of the few things that I talk about, especially for young investors,
yeah,
is about just like having time. You're young, just having time just gives you a lot of leverage. Time in itself
yes,
is some kind of leverage just because you
definitely.
get more cycles in the market.
Yep.
And one of the things that dividend investors kind of tell me is that you shouldn't take you shouldn't take any risk at all. Like if a company is not paying dividends, like just ignore it.
Ignore.
And I mean, so first of all, if you're not going to stay invested unless you're receiving dividends, then ignore everything. Whatever makes
Literally.
you stay in the market, that's what you should do. But obviously, there have been studies because of taxes and a bunch of stuff
Yeah,
that just show that if the company reinvests the money instead of paying it out, it's
it
actually
can be
better.
very good for the company as well.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
I think the main thing is there's like a balance of like when I look at companies, for example, like I don't expect a company like Microsoft or Apple or Google or Amazon or like a lot of these tech focused companies to pay out a large dividend because there's a whole lot more better that they can do by reinvesting that money back into the company. Microsoft and Apple at a point where like, okay, we can expect a dividend payment from them just because their return on investment is a lot more minuscule, but it doesn't mean that they should pay like a 5% dividend all of a sudden. Like, not, there's still much more growth that I
Right.
expect from them reinvesting some of those profits that they're making back into the company and developing new technologies. But for a company like Coca-Cola, I don't really expect them to like tell me that they're reinvesting something and they're trying to develop. It's like, what new product are y'all coming out with? You already do
Yeah.
water, you already do everything. So like your best bet is literally pay out your investors as well. So I
Yeah.
think it's both ways. I think it's like either pay out to shareholders a dividend, or I think even more important is for a lot of companies to start looking at, rather than paying shareholders all this money, is maybe we need to start paying our employees a lot more money so we can attract better employees and we can attract better talent to come to our companies. Because that's one thing that I started looking at is just there's a lot of companies that pay out a lot in dividends and basically they only do it because they know shareholders will keep the CEO there, and then
Okay.
the people who are actually doing the work actually
Yeah.
just kind of get bypassed, and that I don't really like. So a lot of companies that do that, I just kind of bypass them.
That's okay. So you bring up a good point. Have you heard of ESG and
Hmm.
social sort of like investing?
Yeah.
Would you say so? It's really picking up steam right now,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
think it's millennials
Yep.
and the new generation of people just they care about the planet, they care about social impact and things like
Yep.
that. Would you say um, would you say you're kind of like an ESG investor?
I wouldn't say I'm a pure ESG investor
Okay.
because in my portfolio, there's very minimal amounts of ESG. I mean, there's companies in there that focus on ESG, but I wouldn't say like it's a bulk of my portfolio.
Gotcha.
However, it is something that I'll say in the last couple of years, I've only been actively investing in the last year. And so
Okay.
recently, I've been more paying attention to it and I've been more looking at, okay,
Hmm.
what is our planet going to look like in the next number of years? What is the social impact of a company? And then one of the things that I've started looking at is why are companies the way they are right now? So I've been looking at, I have a friend who's an economist, and so I've been talking with her um, about Milton Friedman versus Keynesian economics and learning like the current climate that we have for businesses was not always this way. It was like it's been 40 years since we've been operating businesses the way that we've been operating
Yeah.
businesses. And before that, a lot of companies cared more about just more than just shareholder value. Where all
Hmm.
right now, I mean, Friedman came out and said that the most important thing to any company is shareholder value. Like as long as they're making money for shareholders, that's all that matters. And before that, it was like customers mattered a whole lot more. Employees mattered a whole lot more. The environment in which they're operating their business matters a whole lot more. And so that's one thing that I've been paying more attention to and just learning more about just the economics of like what is the best way to do business. And my money eventually, slowly but surely, it's moving more and more towards those ESG portfolios that are actually like doing more in their communities and doing more for the environment and actually trying to like mitigate the risk of what they're doing.
Awesome. Okay, so you just set yourself up for, I guess, difficult slash personal question. Would you? So, so I'm giving you a little warning before I hit you with it.
It's all good.
Would you sacrifice returns for the benefit of the planet? Now, let me add more color to that. In
Yeah.
that, let's say there's a company who's just trying to save this planet,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, this is the future. I want to put all my money to it,
Yeah.
but there are people around you that really don't care that much,
Yeah.
and they're investing in the other things.
And the
So
other
if
stuff.
most people care about one thing, they drive up the prices of
That's true.
the ESG company.
Yep.
The non-ESG company becomes the new value stock, right? Because now it's cheap because
Yep.
no one is buying it.
That's true.
So how do you balance, returns versus your love for the planet?
Versus the So the way I balance that is pretty straightforward in the sense of like, to me, usually, I mean, by all the research, the good thing is you don't have to play those cards because technically, by all the research and by all accounts, companies that have focused on ESG in the long run have outperformed companies that haven't. And so the weird thing is like overall, people always say like, oh, but you're losing returns and all that. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, but the ESG companies are performing much higher than the typical companies. But I will be willing. I mean, there's a company that Lemonade, the insurance company I was talking about. One of the things that it does that really speaks to me is the way insurance currently operates is they charge you so much more and they keep all the extra profits. What Lemonade does is it charges you an amount of money, and if you go above your deductible and you don't need the extra amount of money in there, it donates that money to some kind of charity of your choice.
Oh, I
So for
didn't know
me,
that.
yeah, so for me, that
Oh,
speaks a lot. So I was listening to the CEO talk about it, and I was listening to how they operate, and I was like, oh, that's for me. I'm willing for him not to pay me a dividend if he's going to pay it to a charity or he's going
yeah,
to pay it to something else. So I'm willing to mitigate some percentage of return. However, it's still a business. So you
yeah,
still have to bring some kind of profit in. You still have to operate at an optimal level. We're not going to give up being the best possible business that you can possibly get, you can possibly be, just because we're chasing after some great good at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we still need you to make some profits. Now, we do know that you walking this line will bring profits for us, though. So,
okay, so that just brought up a good point about, I guess, capitalism as a
yeah,
whole. And there are people who just believe that by doing what's best for the masses
yeah,
and having the masses kind of decide what prices are and what should be valued and what shouldn't be valued,
yeah,
that's basically what's best for humanity. Just make everything, open markets,
yeah.
let everyone bid up or reduce prices as they wish. Um, Oh, can you still see me? My camera kind of froze on my
Yeah,
side.
you froze up.
Okay, let me fix that. So I'm assuming you're inside that boat, just basically saying if a company is bad, you're going to let the public decide if they should be valued or not. Kind of like the cigarette companies, right?
Yeah.
Really, like, they were the top companies at one point,
Hmm.
but time after time, people started sort of selling out of them when they
Yeah.
realized that, okay, cancer and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Which the weird thing about cigarette companies is till this day, they're still some of the most Altria is still like in the top 10 of valuable companies because they still pay out a good dividend. So, and people still smoke. And then of course, they went into Juul and all that stuff. They found another way because as long as there's a way to make money, people are going to find a way to make money. So for me, I like capitalism because I think it's still the best system that we have when it comes to businesses, society, all that kind of stuff. However, I think our current form of capitalism is slightly broken. It's slightly messed up in the sense of it's no longer where the greater public gets to determine who gets to be the best company or not. What it's turned down to is a certain small class of people determine what company does well and what company doesn't do well as far as when it comes to investing. Because you and I, we're retail investors, so we only hold about 25 to 30% sway in the markets. Everything else is the huge hedge funds that's managing a large chunk of money and swinging the markets back and forth and back and forth. And so when they're playing with a whole lot of money, they get to make a lot more of the calls. They make a lot more of the shots and call a lot more shots and determine like, okay, this is where we want the market to go. Or this is where we want it to go. And it leaves a whole lot of people out of it. The whole idea of like the stock market was like the middle guy or the small guy who gets to clean the floors every day at the office, or the small guy who is the janitor, or the small guy who is doing all the keyboard work, or the small guy who is fixing all the light fixtures and all that stuff. They're doing a lot of the big important thing. And the genius of the stock market was he can invest his money and get some of those returns. But that's been messed up now because a lot of times he doesn't get the opportunity to be able to make a little bit of money to be able to invest it. He's just trying to survive because of how everything has been pushed to this idea of shareholder, 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 shareholder. So,
Gotcha. Nice, nice. That was a good segue. All
yeah.
right, so now let's go sort of personal, but not like portfolio questions.
Okay.
What would you say your goal is for investing in the stock market?
My goal for investing, one, just for like a personal, I want to hit having over $100,000 invested by the time I'm 30. I'm currently 26.
Have you done a portfolio reveal on your channel yet?
No,
I'm not gonna ask you that. I'm not gonna ask you that.
I've only showed like my brokerage accounts that I've shown on my channel. I've never done like anything else.
Okay.
But the goal is like at least at some point in the next 4 years, both of my brokerage accounts of where I'm just actively investing, get that to $100,000. Now, the main reason I want to get it to $100,000 is so that I can get a dividend payment of like $4,000 every year.
Okay.
And really, I want to take that dividend payment, not reinvest it, but actually use it towards different charities that I love so much. And I already like donating to those charities, but also like take that money and have it be something that's self-sufficient, where I don't have to like think about, oh man, where am I going to find money to donate to this thing or donate to that thing, where it's like, oh, I got the money for it, so it can just continue donating on its own. And hopefully one day is to create a scholarship fund out of that. And basically, especially as a Nigerian, one of the things that I know a lot of students suffer with, especially international students, is just like money for just school stuff. And so that's one passion that I have, is to be able to create some kind of scholarship fund through my investments and through all those things to donate towards that. And then I guess there's one other thing. There's a lot of, I'm just unpacking a lot of my visions.
We got time.
Yeah. So there's like, the other thing is, in Nigeria, my mom has a school, and one of the things that I've been helping her with it, but it's like to be able to help kids in that school to go to like higher and higher levels, which is something we've been working towards. And hopefully we can get it to the point where it's like self-sufficient, providing enough money for that, and get it to that point. So that's a vision of like the long term of why I really started focusing a lot more on investing.
This is so crazy because my mom also has a school.
Nice.
She has 2 schools in Nigeria.
Oh, dope.
And then, you know, whenever I tell people that, people kind of go, but it's like, I'm a product of that school, right? Yeah. Like when I tell them that, you're like, exactly. Oh, it's actually like, it's that serious, right? Yep. So what she really wants the kids over there to be able to sort of spend some time here studying and then deciding whether they want to go back or not. Yep. And I feel like that's something I would want to help, I guess, sponsor.
That'd be dope.
That was just.
Where's your mom's school?
Really
just.
It's also in Ibadan.
Okay.
Yeah. She has like a primary and secondary. And for those who don't like elementary and primary and
kind of high school, middle school, high school,
middle high kind of school.
High school.
Yeah. So she has both. And I went to the elementary and I also went to the high school before coming over here and starting in the 7th grade. I was supposed to start in the 8th grade, but because of my age, they pushed me back.
They did the exact same thing to me. They did the exact same thing. So like they were gonna push my sister back 2 grades. And my mom was like, "What? No!" Like she legit fought. She fought that the school and was like, "I am not. No, you're not doing that to my daughter."
Isn't that crazy? Just the system where like, I guess back home. Yeah, back home it's like you take a test. Mm-hmm. If your kid passes that test, you skip that class. On to the next one.
You just skip and you skip and you skip as many as you want. Ah, man.
So there's something to be said for throwing students in the deep end. It's like, you may not be fully at this level, but if you were able to pass this test, let's just give you that level and you're going to grow into it. And that's just, I think that's golden, man.
That's the way, anyway, we're not going to get into the whole.
Yeah. No, we can set up another chat for that one. All right. So I also, from one of your videos, I saw that you had some gaming ETFs or just references to just video games in some of your older videos. And I don't know if you see my background, but you can kind of say.
I saw. I was like, oh, okay, he got him. He got it in the background. I was looking at it in the background. I was like, well, I'm going to ask him that at the end of this.
So what do you feel? There's money to be made in gaming. Let's just be clear about that. Yeah. And this is something I've been looking at really closely also. But other than like EA, Activision, and just those publishing companies, I'm frankly not that interested in the publishing companies, right? Anyway, going back to just the gaming thing, where do you feel like, where do you see the most growth? You know, some people say esports, some people are all about, the game developers or the publishers themselves. Where do you see the most growth?
Whoever figures out virtual reality gaming the best, like figures it out properly, I think that's where the market is going. I think right now we're hitting a threshold in gaming where like people are kind of like over or just like playing standard video games or like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I play Call of Duty every time. I play it every time. But whoever develops something like, we just had Facebook came out with their VR stuff with the Oculus Quest 2. And that's like, even though they may not seem like they're entering the gaming space, they're entering into the gaming space heavy.
Yeah.
And so I think the companies that I'm looking at is I'm looking less at actual video game companies and more at tech companies that make software for video game companies.
Okay.
So I'm looking at Microsoft is a big one because they already have like an AR virtual reality type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I just mentioned Facebook. Apple is coming out with their Apple Glass sometime in the future. And so I think virtual reality is going to be, I think is the next big thing in gaming. But of course, we already have E-Stream or E-Game, X Games or whatever you want to call it, where we play video games online and stream it and have all those competitions. That's going to continue growing. And we already have like NBA teams and NFL teams that are creating their own teams for gaming only.
Yeah.
So those kind of things, I think, is a way that we're seeing in gaming. But I think in the future, in the long run, it's whoever can figure out virtual reality. Because gaming is not going to own cloud. Cloud is going to be dominated by like Stadia and xCloud, which is Microsoft's version. And they already both have like cloud services. So basically the next step is who's going to figure out this virtual reality thing first. And whoever does is going to have a major market share and a major market monopoly for a while.
Gotcha. Okay. That was nice. Do you actually think Stadia has a chance? I heard everything I've been hearing is that it's dead.
It's not good. Right now, I think it's one of those things where Google is one of those companies that they will try stuff. Like they will put out stuff that's trash, but they don't care because what they want to do is test it. And then even Android, before Android came out, they had another service and it was like not good at all. But Google is willing to just try and iterate in the public eye. And so Stadia is out now and they'll keep making it better and better.
Yeah.
Where on the other hand, xCloud already had like the baseline knowledge of like how to run online streaming, how to run an online platform. So Xbox was ready for it. So I've been watching reviews of Xbox xCloud, and a lot of the reviews have been positive of like, yo, this is a lot better than we expected. Now, for a lot of the guys doing the reviews, they have crazy, amazing, good internet. And so like they didn't have any lag or anything like that, but they were still saying like it was a lot better than their experience with Stadia. But I think game streaming is the future just because we're moving into not owning stuff as a society. Like we don't really own much of anything anymore. So
nice. I actually did an article. I don't know if you saw that one a few months ago about how Microsoft basically just won this console wars that's been going on. You should check it out. Anyone else?
I'll have to check it out because I don't know.
Wait,
what my question is, which gaming war are you talking about? Are you talking about the gaming war of the Series X, or are you talking about Series X versus PS5 or PS4 versus Xbox One?
Okay, we're gonna take a quick detour here. So that's the thing, right? Is that the Microsoft's goal was not to sell a lot of Xbox consoles, and that was not their goal at all. And that's the reason why they're still releasing the Xbox without Halo, because Halo got delayed after the graphics problems that they had. So their goal is not to sell a lot of consoles. Their goal now is to just get everyone signed up onto the Xbox Game Pass service that they have. So let me see if I can pull up this article that I have.
That's actually a really good point.
Oh yeah, so I was looking into it. I just made some predictions, and then I said, every single game coming out of Xbox Game Studios would also be available on PC.
Yep.
Let's not forget, Microsoft also have their own gaming studios. So
Yep.
they don't really have to. So think about Netflix, right? People keep saying Netflix for gaming. Netflix has to pay a lot of money to acquire their own content, right? They have billions and billions of dollars just for the shows that they're trying to make. And they're pumping out these shows really fast. And that's why Netflix has been kind of successful till now. But Xbox, you think about them, their studios are in-house. They don't have to pay as much money to be able to sort of pay another studio to be able to make it. They have those in-house. So they're about to keep it streamlined. Basically, I just made forced predictions. I'm gonna keep it short, so anyone else who wants to see those can check them out. I'm gonna put a link in the show notes. But like, let's go back to the regular topics. Let's talk about risk for a little bit. One of the biggest things I also write about on the newsletter is just about the way you kind of perceive risk, right? And the biggest thing is, if you're young, let's just say you're still in your 20s, your risk profile is completely different from someone in their 30s, 40s, or someone who's about to retire, right? So how do you, so let me lead with a question. Is the stock market risky as it is right now?
Yes, extremely risky. I don't like, I will be honest, the stock market right now does not make sense. It just, valuations are at levels that we haven't seen since the dot-com boom. And nobody wants to have another dot-com boom because that's when the market tanked. And so we're like looking at the stock market and we're like, it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's very volatile right now.
Okay, so I get this is the next question. What are you doing about it, right? You see things, and things are kind of scary right now. And so what are you doing about it in your portfolio?
In my portfolio, I'm really just watching. I'm dollar cost averaging into the market. So literally just put in a consistent amount of money just to keep growing in the market, to go along with the market. But I'm not trying to make any big moves. Unless there's some kind of major correction or downturn, like we just had a couple of weeks ago, where there was like a couple of stocks that were already pretty low, and then we had a correction in the market again. I was like, gonna go in and buy some more. But apart from those that I already hold, a lot of the valuations are kind of out of worldly. And so right now, what I'm doing is watching. A lot of is doing research, watch lists, and just watching, just seeing what is going on in the market, what's about to happen. Of course, the Feds have already said that they're going to keep interest rates low, so bonds are useless. And so I'm just kind of like, all right, cool. I'm just going to keep watching. I'm just going to go along with the market. So a lot of my focus right now is ETFs, just ETF in my way in because they're safer bet. I'm just like, all right, cool. Like, I don't know which one is going to do well and which one is not going to do well, but I'm just going to be in the market anyway. So that's what I've been doing to mitigate my risk, because otherwise it's just too much.
So when do you call it quits? So let's say we see the market tank 10%, 40%, 80%. When do you feel like enough is enough?
If I stop believing in the American economy. Because even if it's tanks 80%, for example, let's say all of a sudden we see a massive 80% swing. My first reaction is 80% sale. That's my initial reaction. And then I'm going to have to look at, okay, which companies are, because the way I look at the stock market is simply like which companies are cheap and which companies are undervalued for where they are, even though they have a good business portfolio. So for example, let's say all of a sudden something happens with the government, the stock market crashes 80%. I still believe that Microsoft is still going to be a good company. I still believe Apple is a good company. I still believe in so many different companies, because I'm like, their business is not necessarily destroyed or anything. Like, their business is still good, unless something in their business itself messes up. Then it would be like, okay, like like for example, this is a perfect example, Boeing. Boeing was one of those companies that I thought, oh, they're going to be great forever and ever. I used to talk about it with my brother. We used to talk about Boeing a lot, space travel, air travel. And then a plane crashed. And then another plane crashed. And then it was like, hold up a second. Something's not right. And then you see the report of like they were buddy with the FAA, and the FAA wasn't holding them up to standard, up to snuff. And then it's like, okay, their business has changed. Like the fundamental of their leadership and their business practices, that has changed. Therefore, I don't think I trust Boeing as a company anymore to keep doing well. Like, yeah, they may come back and do really good things later on, but as of right now, just looking at the company, I'm just kind of like, I'm hands off of Boeing. Okay. I'm hands off of Boeing because I'm just out on them because I can't trust them. I can't trust them anymore.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned something about interest rates being at zero and you staying out of bonds. What role does fixed income, so bonds or maybe even cash, play in your portfolio?
Right now, zero, because I'm 26. I'm 26, and I'm just like, if anything happens, I can recover in the next 30 or so years.
Thank you.
And so I'm risking it. I'm willing to take the risk, but that's just me, myself, and I. Now, I talk to my friend and my brother. My brother has the same risk portfolio because he doesn't care. But like, I talked to a friend of mine and he was like, I can't, I need to hedge my bets. So I need a little bit of hedge for and his play is, well, at least I'm still getting a consistent dividend payment, at least from the bonds that is out there. So yeah, I have bonds in good corporations and bonds in good government companies. So I'm gonna just keep going. So for him, he needed that hedge. For me, I need the higher returns. I don't want the bonds. I want the higher returns.
That's smart. That's the very first newsletter I actually wrote was basically just that, is that you're young, just take on the equity risk. Even though you don't need the money now, just take on the equity risk. It's not worth it. You may, if you add bonds to it, your portfolio may be flatter and smoother, and you may not get a lot of scares. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're giving up on sizable returns.
Higher return.
Look, you're on top of it.
I've been, so at one point I used to be like, because I would listen to Dave Ramsey when I first started paying attention to personal finance and everything. Dave Ramsey
opinions on him, by the way, but
Dave Ramsey was like, I needed I'll say this, I needed Dave Ramsey to get out of debt. But after you get out of debt, Dave Ramsey is not the best person for investing advice. He has a really old way of investing. And at first I had exactly his method. I was like, yeah. And then when you start reading and learning and you're like, wait a minute, this ain't it. Like, hold up, nah, like I need to make some changes. And so like, it's I think Dave Ramsey's idea of like everything is basically, if you need to get out of debt, Dave Ramsey's your guy.
Oh yeah.
Anything after that is like, maybe not.
No, definitely. I think debt is also a tool, and just throwing it out is not necessarily, the best thing. And I think some of my subscribers on my newsletter would know this, because I don't shy away from debt, especially at the bottom in March. I looked left, I looked right. I saw what volatility was at. I saw that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity. Debt looks really good right now to just try to capitalize on this, right? So
I have a slight different take on that, because I see debt. It's a tool, but it's a two-edged tool, and I'm too scared of debt. I'm very afraid of debt, and so I try to avoid it as much as possible.
That's perfect. No, that's the thing about risk profile and risk appetite, right? It's on a person by person basis. And that's perfectly fine. And the most important thing is for you to know yourself.
That's facts.
Right. And the reason I bring this up now is that I was browsing Reddit a couple of days ago, and I think someone posted on
Reddit is the truth.
Our stocks are investing in our Wall Street bets that they were going to take out credit card debt to invest now at the current. So I was sitting there. I'm like, okay, I'm not a hypocrite. I did this back in March when things were just
Zero.
destroyed,
It was
right?
just literally
Basically
like
destroyed,
red.
right? So back then it was like I was either going to just get wiped out, but at the same time, I knew that expected returns would have been higher
Yeah.
versus doing it now where expected returns are basically non-existent. And the only reason people just keep pushing it is just because of
FOMO.
greed, right?
FOMO.
So honestly, anyway,
It's really dope.
awesome. Let's talk about your business, right? You do a lot, man. You're a YouTuber. You have a podcast. After watching some of your videos and even seeing some of like your content on your podcast, I would add a motivational speaker to your resume. So there's a lot. Like Kelechi is just you're a complex person. So tell me why. Why do you do the things you do, man?
uh when I started, I'll put it this way. So when I was in college, one of the things when we would have exams, like exam weeks and everything,
Yeah.
I used to send these text messages to my friends of just like hyping them up to get ready for exams and hyping them up for like, let's do this. Like, we're going to get this. Like, I used one time, it was during the time when 300 was still like really, really popular, the movie 300.
Yeah.
And I was like, we are going to war and we will. And I was like, just doing all this kind of stuff to hype them up. So I've always been the type of guy that's always like hyping stuff up, especially in my house where all jokesters would love to play around and I love to do it. But then I've always in the past, I used to do video game content, just making YouTube videos on video gaming. And that opened up the world of being creative and video creation. As I used to tell people, video games is my canvas and me talking over it is the artwork. And that was for a while I did that. And then I started working and I didn't have that much time to play video games as much. And I stopped doing that for a little bit. But now the reason I even started a podcast was something my sister said, because I posted this video on Instagram where I was just like, I had just finished working out and I came out and I was like, yo, I was going to work out, but we all need to go to bed tired every single day. Like, if you're tired, you need to finish the day tired every single day. You need to do something to make yourself tired. And she was like, yeah, that stuff is really, really like impactful. You should do a podcast. And she just said it kind of flippantly. And I was like, that's cool. That's cool. I should do a podcast. And then I started the podcast. So really, one of the reasons I started the podcast was because one, my sister said the note and I thought it would be a pretty cool idea. And then secondly was I wanted to inform them about personal finance because they were always calling me like for the same question all the time. And I was like, here's something that you can always go back to have to read and learn about all this kind of stuff. And then on top of it now, and then I just started hearing more stories of different friends that went through some of the stuff that I went through, but they never seemed to come out of it on the other side. Because like, for example, I was in heavy debt when I got out of college, not from student loans, but from stupid decisions. And so one of the things I was just talking, like, I wanted people to see like, yo, you can get out of this stuff. And so that's why I started the podcast. And yeah, so it's just, that's what has been an evolution for me to get to this point of, and then making content on YouTube. YouTube has always been like something I enjoy doing. I just love the creativity of making a video, of just kind of taking the time. I mean, literally some weekends I stay up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, just learning how to make one little animation thing that literally stays on the screen for like less than 3 seconds. But for me, that makes my day when I watch the video, because like, oh my God, look how beautiful that thing is. And so that's just, and then of course, I just love to talk, as you've noticed at this point. I love to talk. So that's why I did the podcast. I love to talk. I love to talk about the stuff that I enjoy, the stuff that I'm passionate about, whether that be faith, whether that be money, whether that be finances, soccer, sports, whatever. I love talking. So, and I love to bring people up, because I feel like there's a lot of negativity. So if I can make one person inspired to do something better, hey, that's
and that has a cascading effect. Like, that's awesome. So I don't know if you'd be willing to share this, but you mentioned that you were in a lot of debt. What were the crazy, stupid things you did? And most importantly, how did you get yourself out of the debt?
So this is the crazy thing. Like, every time I go back to those years, like it was right when I got out of college. And it's like, what exactly did I spend? You literally I went back. Every so often I like reflect back to those period of time because I was like, I got out of college with zero debt. Thank God for scholarships. Thank God for my parents. Zero debt. And then I started working. And then somehow, some way, I ended up with like $20,000 in debt.
Wow.
And I was like, what did I spend? And it's like, I can't tell you what exactly I spent money on. I traveled way too much with money that I didn't have. And that compound interest is like the most beautiful thing when you're investing. And it's the worst thing when you're in debt. It's just oh my gosh. But anyway, so like literally I keep going back. It's like, I traveled a lot. I had a girlfriend at that time. So I would like fly her out to see me and me go see her. And then it's just like a lot of money spent that way, which was just a literally a waste of money because we broke up and it was just like, okay, all that is gone. I used to buy stuff that I literally didn't need. I'm a tech head. And so I'll just buy all kind of tech stuff. It's like, I'm finally working. So, all the stuff that I've been seeing all these YouTubers have all this year, I need it. I can afford it. So I'm buying it. And I couldn't afford it, obviously, but I was buying all this stuff. So it's just like,
wow.
I wasted so much money of just on random stuff.
What was the turning point? Where did it click for you that
I hated my job?
Oh, okay.
So I started a job. The job that I started, I was working at a lumber mill. I started at a lumber mill, and I was in the proceedings of like becoming a supervisor at the lumber mill. But I was just like, I don't like it. I didn't like the hours I worked. I worked days and nights. And I was just like, I don't like this very much. And the only thing that was keeping me going was I had all this debt that I was just like, yo, this thing's not gonna, I have to pay this debt off. And so one day I came home and I was talking to my sister. I was like really mad or really upset. I was like, I hate my job. I hate what's going on. And on the way home, I had heard this, a podcast by these two guys, Jalen and Jacoby, which is like sports show. But one of the things that they said on there was appreciate your position while plotting your promotion. And then the other guy said something else. He said, while you are in the position that you are in right now, get rid of all the excess so that you can make the moves that you want to make. Wow. And so that hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, first of all, why are you complaining about a job that you have? Second of all, if you really hate your job that much, what is holding you back? Get rid of all the extra stuff that's holding you back. And then I was like, all right, cool. So and then right before I started working at my church that I grew up in, we had started the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University, but I didn't go through it while I was at church, but I had the stuff. And so when I moved, that stuff just started collecting dust because I didn't pay attention to it. But then all of a sudden I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, my church gave me all this stuff that I need to use. And so I pulled all that stuff out. I started listening to Dave Ramsey's podcast. I started like just watching a bunch of Dave Ramsey stuff. I literally became inundated in the Dave Ramsey everything because I was like, I'm getting out of this debt because I don't want to work here anymore. I need that room that if I need to quit, I'm quitting and I'm going to go do something else because I'm tired of doing this. So like for the next year and a half, I paid the debt off in like 6 months or something like that. And then after that, it was like I saved up money. And then I had to sit down with my boss where he was like, oh, you're doing a great job. We want to offer you this, and this. And I also had like this temporary transfer thing where I was working with them on basically like where I decided if I wanted to stay long-term or not, and where they were going to like pay me a bunch of money. And I was just like, nah. And he was like, that's not how this works. And he was like, if you don't get something, you're out of here in like 2 months. And so for me, it was just kind of like, all right, cool. Like, because at this point I paid off my debt. I had some money in the account. So I was like, if I lose my job, I lose my job. It's like, I'll find something else. And so and the thing about personal finance, it gives you confidence to do things that you otherwise think you can't do. And so for me, when that happened, it was just kind of like, I was scared. I'm not going to lie. I was super scared because I was like, am I going to get another job? Am I going to get another job? But I just thank God it all worked out. It played itself out. I found a job within like a week of like my final day. And then I walked into his office, put in my 2-week notice, and I was like, We out of here. But
That's
yeah.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I've noticed a trend in everything you've been saying. So first you were in debt.
Yeah.
You figured out you needed Dave Ramsey at
Yeah.
that moment. So you followed what he was teaching.
Yeah.
But after you got out of debt, you're smart and you figured out I don't need Dave Ramsey anymore if I'm about to start investing now.
Yeah.
So why didn't you follow, you were already following Dave Ramsey. Why didn't you just continue following him and his investing advice? Why did you like drop Dave Ramsey and like go to, let's say, Buffett or someone else?
So for a while, even after I got out of debt and like I was still like kind of in the Dave Ramsey mindset of things of just like, yeah, definitely agree with a lot of stuff. I'm still very much not a fan of debt. If I could, I would buy a house outright, even though I know there's an opportunity cost of like, why would I? That's not very wise. But I'm not a fan of debt. But like the reason I actually ended up like being like, all right, Dave Ramsey, appreciate you for what you're giving to society. I appreciate you for what you're doing. But because you get to the point where it's just like, I take in a lot of information and I love information. And so the more you learn, the more you realize that, okay, this method works for this specific point in time and season, but it's not going to carry you all the way. It's like if Apple, for example, like if you just think about Apple, if Apple didn't decide like, we will literally they literally cannibalize their computer sales so that they can make the iMacs. And they literally keep doing that, where they keep killing products to make another product better. But they don't care because they know that this product is much better. So we need to kill off this thing so we can keep growing. And it's like, you just have to, once you learn and you're taking in more and more information, you figure out like, oh, Dave Ramsey is good for like this one thing. But learning from Warren Buffett, learning from Peter Lynch, learning from Charlie Munger, all of these other guys for what they do and what they specialize at.
Yeah.
Because Dave Ramsey, I would say he specializes on debt. Like literally he's a specialist when it comes to debt because that's what his life hinged on. For these other guys, they specialize in investing. And so that's I guess the main reason I ended up switching was just literally I just thought like, this makes more sense. I was like, I'm not so like caught up in my own whatever of like, there's one way and only one way. It's like, nah, you take information as they come and it's like a quote that I said, it says, as I think it was Winston Churchill who said it. They asked him a question. It was like, why do you always change your mind? He said, I change my mind as the information changes. What do you do, good sir? And it's like, literally, the information has changed. I'm allowed to change my mind. That's the smart thing to do. No smart person says everything is the same all the time.
Yeah. So you're really open-minded. So you've been
Right,
dropping a lot of quotes all throughout the episode. So tell me, what are your top, let's say, 3 must-read books for young investors?
For young investors, rule number 1 by, I forget his name right now, but it's called Rule 1, and it's like a basic guide to invest in. Basically, everything you need to know on like just how to get into the market, how to look for like opportunity cost of the market, all that kind of stuff. Second book that I advise people to read, I haven't read it, I haven't finished reading it, I should say, is Peter Lynch's Learn to Earn. Yeah. I just like it because it's very simple. I like simple stuff. Anything that's simple, I'm going to get into it. And then the third one, which is one that you have to like, I literally spent this entire summer just reading this one, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Mm-hmm. That book is hard. Oh, wait. No, because that one is like the next level book. John Bogle's The Little Book About Investing. Okay. It's a very simplified way for anybody who's just starting out. And it basically talks about how you can beat all the fund managers out there most of the time. No, actually all the time, consistently. And so I like that book, The Little Book. And then a caveat, a third one would be that if once you start getting and you're like, okay, time for that next level, then you go for that Benjamin Graham. And you're going to have to take it one chapter at a time because that thing was written back in 1950 something. And the good thing is there are other chapters in there where it like make stuff more reasonable and makes it make more sense. So
awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
we're wrapping up here.
Cool.
What investor would you like to hear me interview and why?
Investor. So, I mean, couple of, you know what, hold on. Let me just look.
Realistic, be realistic with it.
That's what I was about to say. Like, because I was like, in my head, I was already like, oh, Andre Schick, Graham Stephan. And I was like, okay. And oh, wait, there is. Now, if you can get him on your podcast, that would be pretty dope. Trevor Hassel.
Okay.
He's a 22-year-old guy that has done really well for himself in the stock market. I really like his content on YouTube as well.
Okay.
Tommy Bryson.
Okay.
Tommy Bryson, he does really a lot of good stuff on investing. Somebody that I interviewed on my podcast, his name is Anthony McLemore. He's a basketball player. He played basketball for Auburn in college, and then now he's a wealth manager. So he makes really good stuff. Another guy is Stephen Ojo. He's also a Nigerian guy.
Stephen Ojo.
Awesome. I like his stuff. So that's a few names that I'll just throw out there as some people that I appreciate their take on investing and those kind of things.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Kelechi, man. Thanks for being on the show. It's been a pleasure having you, man.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I've had a lot of fun just talking through all these different topics. As you guys know, I ramble a lot and talk a lot. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. For you guys listening, you can follow Kelechi on YouTube at Kelechi Iwuaba. Mm-hmm. And I'm also going to include the links at the description of the video and also in the show notes for the podcast. Yep. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Hello. Hope you enjoyed that episode. You can support the show by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts and leaving a review. We're also on YouTube if you'd like to watch us smile and laugh as you listen. Also subscribe to my premium newsletter at tolusnotes.com. That's TOLUSNOTES.com for timeless lessons for young investors. See you next week.